Welcome back to our Tableau help videos. To start off with, we're going to start with a new type of visualization. We're going to do a pie chart. I know that you're probably thinking, I can do a pie chart in Excel. The pie charts in Tableau are pretty cool, but they're also relatively difficult. So let's start with one that we can work with. So let's select a new sheet. For this particular pie chart, we're going to do gross sales by country. So as we've done several times already, we're going to select customer country and drag it to our rows column. And then we're going to use the calculated field gross sales that we selected in the that we created in the last video. So we're going to take gross sales, we're going to drag it up to columns because it's a measure and that's where it goes. And it's going to create this bar graph by default. Click on the show me and tell it I want instead to make a pie chart. First thing that you'll likely notice is this pie chart is very colorful, but also not very useful because, one, we can't see it, two, it's really small, and it doesn't have any data that shows us how we could possibly use it. So to start with, we're going to work on resizing the pie chart. Personally, I think this is one of the most difficult visualizations to work with in Tableau, but creates one of the biggest bang for your buck, so I think that it's important. Step one in changing the size of a pie chart is to go to the marks card, select size, and tell it to make the pie chart bigger. It'll make the pie chart bigger to a point, and then you'll notice it just starts getting bigger within the square. Once it starts getting bigger within the square, you're to the point that you want to be so that we can format this shape. Go back to the pie chart, right-click, and select Format. You're going to notice that this Format tab comes up over here. We're not actually going to use this right now, but all of these things are available should you want them. You can format the rows and the columns, you can change the fonts, you can do all sorts of things. Right now we're only going to work on the sheet, and all we're really wanting to do is expand this pie chart. But without clicking Format, we can't tell where the edges are, so we're just going to keep expanding it until it's about the size that we want our pie chart to be ultimately. You'll notice that it's not getting round, it's just expanding outward. Now we just have a bigger portion of this square of the inside of the pie chart, which again isn't what we want, but I told you it's frustrating. So we're going to click back on size and we're going to back it down so that we get the roundness of our pie chart again. And we're going to make it as big as we can, but it still fit in the circle. And now our pie chart looks more like what we expect. So if we hover over the slices of this pie chart, it tells us the United States has $850,000 in gross sales and is the biggest portion. And we can see over here the United States is this weird pink color. So all of the information is there, but we might like for the information to actually be displayed on the pie chart. So let's get rid of this format and go back to our data tab. And let's tell it, okay, I know by color what country I have, but show me gross sales. So if I want the gross sales to appear on the pie chart, I will grab the pill down here for gross sales. I'm going to drag it up in this marks card here and drop it on label. And you'll notice that it starts to appear. So it shows us the United States. It's going to show us Venezuela. It's going to show us Austria. It's not going to show us all of them because it's not going to overlap. If you want to show all of them, you'll click on this label. And you'll say, allow labels to overlap other marks. And then you get this craziness that goes on down here. You're not going to want to do this, but if you wanted it to show it all, that's what you would do. So now I feel better. It shows me country by color and shows me numbers. If I really wanted it to show me customer country in a label as well as by color, I could just simply drag customer country to label as well, and it will put those up there for me. Let's rename this. So right click on the sheet, click rename, and we're going to do gross sales pie chart. But that's not really what we want the title of our pie chart to be. So we're going to double click up here. And again, I told you this is programming code for name this whatever the sheet name is, but I don't want that. I want gross sales by country. I don't need to tell people it's a pie chart in my pie chart. They know about looking at it, so I will change it to gross sales by country. And then you have a lovely pie chart that shows you all of the countries and the gross sales. So that's pretty cool. Again, I show you the pie chart not because it's particularly difficult, but it is difficult to format. So let's try a new kind of visualization. Let's create a new sheet and let's figure out how many different employee titles there are and how many employees per title category there are. So this seems pretty easy. Let's go to employees and we need employee title in rows, and we want a count of how many employees there are based on employee title. So we'll grab employee ID and let's drag it right here. And then it does that weird thing that I told you where it's a dimension. It wants to make it a row. I don't want it to be a row. I want it to be the column information. So I drag it up here. And I want it to truly be a count of individual employees. So a count distinct of individual employees. So that's all well and good. It says I have 1 sales coordinator, 1 sales manager, 6 sales representatives, and 1 vice president. You will notice, based on what you know, that the president is missing. The president is missing. You're right. President is missing because in our original database, the president doesn't have any sales. So if you need to figure out why, you can click back on data source and remember that in the beginning here, we did an inner join between sales and employees, which only is going to give us employees which have sales. So right now, our chart isn't correct because we have another employee, but right now we're only showing employees who have sales, so that's okay for what we're working on in this class. But if you were curious where the president went, that's where he or she went to start with. So we're going to leave this as a bar chart, but we're going to click on the axis's current name. We're going to choose to edit it because it just says distinct count of employee ID, which I don't want. So we're going to edit this axis to say number of employees. So you get this pop-up box when you say edit the axis. You can change the minimum and the maximum on here. You can change it from being uniform to all different kinds of things. Right now, all we're going to change is the title. So we'll select this and then we're going to say number of employees. Well, then you can do some really cool stuff with this as well. So we're going to say number of employees, and instead of hitting reset, we're going to close it and it's going to come up here. You remember I told you sometimes you were going to get words up here that you didn't want. So if I right click on this, it doesn't give me the option to change it. There's no edit alias here. There's no format axis. There's just remove, there's filter, there's sort, there's format. There's not anything that I want. So the easiest way to change this to actually be employee title is to go over to this one and hit rename and actually change this field to be named employee title. And then it will fix it here as well. So what if I wanted to show the employee IDs that were related to this? This is a really cool feature. I can grab employee ID and I can say label those bar charts with the employee ID. And now it shows me I still have these 6 sales representatives, but shows me the individual employee numbers that relate. So I think that that's pretty cool. We're going to name this employees per title category, if I could speak. Employees per title. That's fine. Employees per title. And then we're going to move on. So as you can see, there's different ways to change the axis. I showed you if you right click here and select format, you can change the values on the axis. You can do all sorts of things. So what if I want to know more about the employees by title? So what if I want to know the employees by title and their city? So how would I get that to start out with? I'm going to click on a new worksheet and I'm going to say I want employee title as a row and I want employee city as a row. And now I want that count of employee ID. So I'm going to know from my last visualization that I need to drag it up here and tell it to count distinct. And then I have employee title, employee city, and the count based on the city as well. So this tells me that my sales representatives have 4 different cities. Again, if I want to know which employees are in each city, I can just drag employee ID over to label and it will change that for me as well. I don't like that this says employee city. So again, to change that, I'm going to go over here and rename this actual field to employee city. Hit enter. It will fix it in my chart, which I can then change the width of so you can see it all. And I want to change this as well. So I'm going to edit the axis and say count of employees again. I don't like this. So count of employees and close it. And then I get a graph that is useful that tells me employees by city. So let's say employees by city, rename employees by city. And this will change our title up here as well. So as you can see, we're getting faster as we move through these visualizations. We could also, if we wanted to know the employee's first name on this chart, we also could label with employee first name and we would get Michael or Robert. If we wanted to get rid of employee ID as not a label anymore, we drag it down here to what's called the abyss. It will disappear and it will label these by their first name. So this can be a very useful chart as well. Let's do one more. So let's click on a new sheet and let's figure out what the gross sales, net sales, and discounts are by employee title. Okay, so if we want employee title, we know that that's a row because it's a dimension. And then if we want gross sales, net sales, and total discounts as these bar charts. So this is an interesting graph, right? It's kind of hard to read. So what can we do to make this into a different kind of graph? Well, we can first do the show me. So again, your show me button is here. If you don't see it, push Control-1 and you'll get what I have. And we can see this in a variety of ways. So let's see. Oh, well, that's an interesting one that shows us gross sales, net sales, and total discounts. That's interesting. Here's another way we could look at it. An up and down bar graph. I personally think this one's pretty cool. Or we can have side-by-side bar charts. If we have side-by-side bar charts, this gets kind of interesting. So let's close this show me. And now I have each employee title with all of these different categories. Well, what if I want to stack them up into one individual bar? And let's say I want to put total discounts on top of net sales. So here's what you do. You go down here and we want total discounts. No. Let's exclude gross sales. Exclude gross sales. And now let's take net sales and drag it over on top of discounts. And it doesn't want to do this for me. Of course not, because you're watching me. So let's see. We excluded gross sales. And now we have net sales and total discounts. So if I add these two numbers together, I'm going to get gross sales, because in fact, these two things added together are gross sales. But if I want to have them on top of each other, let's grab measure names and drag it off to the abyss. So now let's go back and explain what happened. So measure names is up here in columns. So right now I have told Tableau that I want employee title as a column, and so it gives it to me up here. And then I want measure names as separate columns as well. So I have net sales, total discounts, and I've said these measure names, which are the names of these two measures, I want them as separate columns. So if I want to just stack them, I can grab this measure names, drag it off into the abyss, and say, no, I really just want the values by employee title. And it'll stack them on top of each other. And then you have this cool graph, which in fact does total gross sales. And if you wanted to add the full total of gross sales to this, you can just grab gross sales and drag it up and the labels will appear. So now you have total net sales, total discounts, and the gross sales total number by employee, which is pretty cool. So we're going to do measures by employee. And again, if I rename this, it's not gonna, if I rename this, it's not gonna rename the sheet, but that's okay. We'll rename the sheet in a second. Measures by employee, and click OK. And then this is gonna be my stacked bar chart. Hopefully this video has taught you that it's okay to just randomly drag stuff around in Tableau. That's how you learn, and that's how you make mistakes and how you figure out how all of these things work. You'll notice as you watch videos and you watch your professor in class, it looks easy when somebody else is doing it, but until you get in here and try to think about what do I have to do to get these things to pop up, you don't really know. So Tableau is much more user-friendly, I feel like, than Excel and Access. But in Access, we were just trying to learn straight logic, and now we're trying to create visualization. So I'm hoping that you're enjoying it and that you will take the time to explore the program, because your employers, when you leave UT and go to work, are really excited about this, and I hope that you find this to be valuable. Please continue to watch videos for additional project help and more visualizations to come. Thank you.